The silence in the council chamber was suffocating, the atmosphere thick with the weight of countless eyes turned toward the human representatives. The delegates, standing in front of the colossal, semi-translucent council dais, were an eclectic mix of humanity's finest diplomats, military leaders, and scientists. At the center stood Admiral Leora Sen, her expression a mask of determination, even as she sensed the impending storm. Across from her, the ancient alien faces were unreadable, beings whose races had existed for thousands of years, each with their own culture and ambition. The towering insectoid Vren, the sleek, crystalline Drell, the massive, stone-skinned Kari, all had gathered to decide the fate of humanity. Admiral Sen, the voice of Chancellor Ulthor, the highest-ranking member of the Galactic Council, rang out, booming and impersonal. His elongated golden form shimmered with a cold, serene grace as he spoke. Your species has made clear its disregard for the laws of the Council. Your weapons, your interference with developing worlds, your violation of the non-expansion accords, all these are unforgivable. The Council has voted. Humanity is hereby banished from Council space, effective immediately. A ripple of muted whispers spread across the chamber. Leora's heart sank, but she did not falter. Banishment, a punishment typically reserved for the most dangerous and disruptive species. No trade, no alliances, no recognition. Exile to the furthest reaches of the galaxy, beyond the Council's protective borders, where nothing but the void and uncharted threats awaited. She could feel the eyes of her fellow humans on her, some staring in shock, others in resignation. But she had prepared for this moment. Humanity had already expected the worst. The Council's agenda was clear. They saw humans as a threat, a species too volatile, too aggressive, and too fast-evolving to allow them a place in the stars. They feared what humanity might become. "I have heard your judgment," Leora said, her voice calm but carrying the weight of authority. "And I reject it." A murmur spread through the chamber, followed by a silence so profound it could have been felt. The alien delegates leaned forward, curious, as if they had not expected such defiance. "What did you say?" Chancellor Ulthor's tone was deceptively soft, but there was an edge beneath it, a blade sheathed in velvet. "I said I reject it," Leora repeated, her voice unwavering. "You believe that banishment will break humanity, that it will destroy us, but you are wrong. You have underestimated us. You have made a grave mistake." Her words rippled through the room, the tension rising with each passing second. The Council thought they had won, that their vast network of alliances and advanced technologies could contain and crush any species they deemed unworthy. They had ruled the stars for millennia, with an iron grip on all lesser races. But humanity had something different: resilience, a relentless will to survive. "I may not have the authority to change your verdict today," Leora continued, her eyes hardening. "But mark my words, humanity will rise again. We will not be your subordinates. You will regret this decision." She turned, her back now to the Council, and walked toward the exit with quiet but resolute steps. As she reached the door, her voice rang out once more, echoing in the vast chamber. "We will forge our own future, and it will be ours." The door slid shut behind her, and for the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council was left in stunned silence. The vast emptiness of the Perseus expanse stretched before them, endless, hostile, a frontier beyond the reach of the Council's influence. As the fleet of human ships entered this uncharted territory, the reality of their situation sank in. There was no turning back. Earth and its colonies were now a memory, a distant echo of a once great civilization. But humanity had never been one to dwell in the past. The future was all that mattered now. Admiral Leora Sen stood at the command center of the lead ship, Liberty's Dawn, staring out at the dark void. The silence around her was almost tangible, broken only by the occasional hum of the ship's systems. Her face was set in a grim expression, but her mind was already calculating, already planning the next steps. Humanity had survived worse, and they would survive this. Report. Leora's voice was steady, but it carried the weight of 1,000 questions. Commander Ray Tanaka, a sharp-minded officer with a reputation for handling crisis situations, stepped forward. Admiral, we've completed the initial jump. Our first wave of colonies, Bastion, Prometheus, and New Dawn, are all establishing orbital stations. Resource extraction teams are ready to begin terraforming procedures on the primary planet of Bastion. Leora nodded, her eyes narrowing. And the threats? Tanaka's eyes flicked to the star charts, where alien markers pulsed on the map, indicating strange, uninhabited systems, and in some cases, lurking dangers that were yet unknown. We've already detected multiple anomalies on our scanners. The expanse is far from empty. Automated war machines from a long-forgotten war are scattered across several systems, and there are signs of hostile biospheres, feral species, uncharted. Unacceptable, Leora muttered under her breath. She had expected this. The expanse was rumored to be filled with ancient ruins and forgotten dangers, but the last thing they needed was to face enemies that had been waiting eons for a fight. She tapped a button on the command chair, bringing up the fleet's tactical display. The fleet was a motley collection of warships, arc ships, mining vessels, and the battered remnants of Earth's military forces. Yet, despite their lack of preparation, the human fleet was well armed, equipped with makeshift technologies and weapons that defied the Council's knowledge of human ingenuity. Terran scientists had worked tirelessly on weaponizing alien technology scavenged from the battlefield, developing rapid reactive shielding and ion cannons capable of shredding even the most advanced alien defenses. Prepare the fleet for potential engagement, Leora ordered, her voice cutting through the tension. I don't care if they're ancient machines or alien scavengers. We'll show them that humanity is not to be trifled with. Tanaka's eyes flicked to the tactical screen. Admiral, there's a signal incoming from the Bastion colony. Urgent. Patch it through, Leora said. On the holographic display before her, a rugged colonist appeared, his face streaked with dirt. Admiral, we've hit a snag. The planet's atmosphere is habitable, but... He paused, visibly shaken. There are remnants of an alien fleet still in orbit. We've got scavenger drones closing in on the mining sites. They got tech we haven't seen before. It's not like anything we've encountered. Leora clenched her fists. This was the moment. I'm dispatching a team, she said, already preparing her next move. Get ready to deploy the rapid response units. We're not just settling. We're taking this place. The human fleet, drawn together by necessity and hardened by fire, would show these ancient machines and alien invaders that the Terrans had no intention of being mere exiles. They were here to claim their future, and nothing was going to stop them. As the fleet prepared to engage, Leora stepped forward, her face steely with determination. The first battle of their new empire had begun. The skies above Bastion were ablaze with conflict. Human ingenuity and relentless drive had already begun to reshape the planet. What was once a barren rock now teemed with life, and the bustling construction of the first Terran city, New Horizon, spread across its surface like a wildfire. However, the battle that had started with a handful of scavenger drones now spiraled into something much larger. The remnants of the ancient alien fleet, seemingly activated by the human intrusion, had begun to organize. Massive warships, remnants of a lost empire, began circling in orbit. But the humans weren't just holding their ground. They were fighting back. Admiral Leora Sen stood at the helm of Liberty's Dawn, her eyes fixed on the fleet above. They had learned quickly. The aliens' old technology was far more advanced than anything humanity had encountered on Earth. But what the humans lacked in experience, they more than made up for in resourcefulness. The warships had been retrofitted with alien engines, AI-driven targeting systems, and experimental ion disruptors designed to bring down the heaviest of shields. The bastions of human technology were rising, one battle at a time. Admiral, we've engaged their flagship, Commander Tanaka reported, her voice crackling through the comms. Our ion disruptors are working, but their shields are regenerating faster than we anticipated. Lyora's fingers drummed steadily on the console. We need to take down their leadership ship, now. We can't afford to let them regroup. Prep the fleet for simultaneous assault. The tension in the command room was palpable as she gave the order. It had been a gamble, engaging the alien remnants on their own turf, but victory had begun to seem possible. The alien fleet, once superior, was now fighting a losing battle against human tactics, technology, and sheer determination. But the real fight had yet to begin. The human fleet launched its final assault on the alien flagship, a gargantuan warship draped in alien architecture, seemingly as much a weapon as it was a living entity. The ship's bioengineered hull shifted and reformed as it absorbed fire, its weapon systems firing back with the power of 1,000 suns. But humans had adapted. As the Vanguard slipped into formation with the rest of the fleet, Captain Amelia Kane shouted over the comms, "Activate Project Titan." The prototype warship Titan's Edge emerged from the darkness, its massive bulk now fully operational. Powered by the fusion of human engineering and scavenged alien tech, it was a sight to behold, its hull pulsing with a blue glow. The ship was a monster, its weapons capable of piercing even the toughest alien armor. As Titan's Edge launched its opening salvo, beams of energy lanced across the sky, decimating alien drones in an instant. Human forces on the surface cheered as the skies opened up, the orbital battle sending shockwaves across the planet. In the midst of this chaos, something else was happening. Something more. Humanity wasn't just surviving anymore. They were learning. They were evolving. Lyora stood at the command center, watching as her fleet obliterated the last of the alien remnants. The battle wasn't over, but the message had already been sent. As the alien flagship began to crumble, its last captain sending out a futile distress call before the ship was vaporized, Lyora allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction. For the first time since their banishment, humanity had not only survived, they had conquered. They had secured their first victory in the expanse. "The first victory of our empire," Lyora said quietly, turning to her crew. Her eyes were hard with resolve. "Now we build." In the aftermath, the human fleet reassembled, their forces battered but unbroken. Earth was behind them, but they had laid the foundation of something new. The Terran ascendancy. They had lost everything, but in the expanse, they had found their strength. This was just the beginning. The war had only just begun, yet already, whispers of humanity's resilience were spreading like wildfire through the galaxy. As the Terran fleet expanded its presence, establishing new colonies and securing ancient alien ruins, the Galactic Council could no longer ignore what was happening on the fringes of their controlled space. The expanse, once a desolate and forgotten corner of the galaxy, was now a crucible forging something powerful, something dangerous. The Terran Empire was taking shape. The Council had been slow to react, their internal politics at odds. The conservative factions, led by the Vren and the Drell, argued that humanity's growth should be curtailed immediately. Meanwhile, the more pragmatic voices, including the Carri and the Xanteri, proposed caution. There was no denying the scale of what had been set into motion. Humanity had built cities from nothing and shattered an alien fleet in a matter of weeks. It was clear that something had changed. Within the council chambers, tension ran high. Chancellor Ulthor, his golden skin shimmering in the low light, addressed the gathering of galactic leaders. The room, once filled with unity and the weight of ancient tradition, now crackled with an edge of discord. The debate was no longer theoretical. It was personal. "We've heard the reports." Ulthor's voice was cold and commanding, his gaze sweeping across the room. "Humanity has expanded beyond our borders, conquering worlds that were never theirs to claim. They've desecrated the very laws we've upheld for millennia. I've warned you." A deep voice growled from across the table. It was Vresh, the leader of the Vren, a species as old as the galaxy itself, known for their militaristic culture. "The humans are too aggressive, too unpredictable. Their rise will bring ruin to us all. If we do not act swiftly, we risk everything. But we do not know how to stop them, countered Arisha, the crystalline representative of the Drell. Her voice was calm, but tinged with concern. Their technology is unlike anything we've encountered. They are already developing weapons we have no defense against. The human fleet continues to advance faster than we anticipated. Ulthor shifted uneasily. The Council had underestimated humanity from the start, just as Leora Sen had predicted. They thought exile would break the Terrans. Instead, it had made them stronger. Now the question was no longer whether to act, but how. In the depths of Council space, a single ship slipped out of a hidden dock, cloaked in secrecy. A new strategy was being forged in the shadows, a covert war of intelligence, sabotage, and assassination. The Council's Black Fleet, a shadow organization once used to neutralize dangerous threats, had been reactivated. It was time to send a message to humanity that their defiance would not be tolerated. On the fringes of the expanse, Grand Admiral Cassius Flint stood aboard the Defiant, his flagship, overseeing the latest assembly of human forces. His eyes were drawn to the starred charts before him, a map of humanity's newfound territory. The Terran ascendancy had grown far faster than even he had expected. What was once a fractured group of colonies was now a unified force, one that could not be easily undone. We've won the battles, but the war is just beginning, Flint said, his voice low and calculating. He turned to his closest advisors. The Council will strike soon. They will come for us with everything they have. We cannot allow them to regain control of the expanse. Flint had been a seasoned tactician on Earth, but here, in the unknown reaches of space, he had forged a new understanding of warfare. The Council's traditional methods, diplomacy, slow encroachment, economic dominance, were no longer options. Humanity's approach was swift, brutal, and efficient. We need to disrupt their efforts before they can gain any momentum. Flint continued. We'll use their own tactics against them. We know they'll send assassins, covert operatives. Let's give them a taste of their own medicine. It was clear that humanity was on the verge of becoming a force that could not be ignored. But the Council's response, though swift and deadly, would force the Terran ascendancy to evolve even faster. The era of diplomacy was over. Now, the galaxy was about to witness the true birth of an empire, one that would bend the stars to its will. The tension in the galaxy thickened with every passing day. The once stable order of the Council was being pushed to the breaking point, and the galaxy could feel it. For every victory humanity claimed in the expanse, the Council struck back in the shadows. Covert operations, sabotage, and political manipulation became the new tools of war. Humanity had crossed a line, and now the Shadow War was upon them. In the heart of the Terran Ascendancy's operations, Admiral Leora Sen sat before a dark holographic map, her eyes tracing the spiraling tendrils of the Council's conspiracy. The Black Fleet, a covert organization of assassins, spies, and special operatives, was hunting humanity's leadership with a relentless focus. One by one, high-ranking Terran officers had been targeted, their ships mysteriously disabled or sabotaged, their colonies infiltrated by sleeper agents. Lyra clenched her fists, staring at the glowing red markers that signaled the latest attempt on their forces. "They think they can silence us with shadows," she muttered, her voice low but full of fury. "But they're wrong. We need to take the fight to them," said Commander Ray Tanaka, her voice steady as always, but with an edge of anxiety. "We can't keep reacting to their moves. We need to infiltrate their network, expose their operatives. If we don't, they'll whittle us down, piece by piece." Leora nodded, her mind working quickly. The Shadow War was not one of space battles or overt military confrontation. No, this was a war of intelligence, where every human decision made was a potential leak, every contact with a foreign power a possible betrayal. The Council had played this game for millennia, and humanity was only just learning its rules. but learning quickly. They were. "We already have the tools," Leora said, standing up and moving to the edge of the command table. "Our cyber warfare division has cracked several of their secure communication channels. We've intercepted reports of Black Fleet movements, rogue operatives disguised as diplomatic envoys, ships that disappear into uncharted sectors without a trace." "We've been too slow," Tanaka replied. "Every day they grow bolder. If we're going to counter this, we need to go on the offensive." Lyora's eyes narrowed. "We do. It's time to play their game." Meanwhile, in the Council's secretive heart, Chancellor Ulthar sat in his private chambers, his mind racing. The latest failure, the assassination attempt on Admiral Sen, had shaken his confidence. The human fleet was unlike any the Council had ever faced. The attempts on their leadership, the failed sabotage operations, all of it pointed to a new breed of warfare. Humanity had adapted quickly, and their resilience seemed to defy the very fabric of Council doctrine. The Vren were growing impatient. "This human threat will destabilize everything," Vresh had growled during the last Council meeting. "We must crush them before they can unify the Expanse." Ulthar's golden eyes glowed faintly, the weight of his decision pressing down on him. He had promised the Council unity, but now the fractures were becoming too visible. The Drell's silence on the matter only added to the growing unease among the Council's most powerful factions. Humanity was not just a threat. They were changing the balance of power. "We need to act decisively," Ulthar muttered to himself. "But first, we need to remove the one who started this, the architect of the rebellion." He rose from his chair, a sinister resolve taking shape. The Black Fleet, with its unparalleled skill in subterfuge and assassination, would make its next move, this time against Admiral Sen herself. Back in the Expanse, the first strikes had already begun. The Dawn's Edge, a sleek Terran warship, silently slipped into an uncharted system where an ancient alien satellite was believed to house intelligence on Council operatives. A team of hand-picked agents, led by Colonel Elena Miles, infiltrated the station's depths, their mission clear: retrieve any data that could expose the identities of the Council's spies. They moved in the dead of night, their every step calculated, their movements precise. But what they found was beyond what they had imagined. The satellite held records of every mission the Black Fleet had conducted in Council space, and among the files was a name: Admiral Leora Senator. The truth was darker than they could have ever realized. The Black Fleet had been hunting Leora for months, long before the battle for Bastion had even begun. The Shadow War was now no longer a mere retaliation, it was personal. The Council had not only underestimated humanity, they had underestimated Leora Sen herself. And now, both sides stood at a precipice, knowing that the next move would determine everything. The game of shadows had only just begun, and both the humans and the Council were playing for their very survival. The walls of the war room hummed with activity as Admiral Leora Sen paced back and forth. The digital map projected above the central table flickered with live updates, data streams from reconnaissance missions, intercepted communications, and most critically, the intelligence gathered by Colonel Elena Miles' team on the ancient satellite. The revelation had shaken them all. The Council had been targeting Leora long before humanity had risen in the Expanse. There was a calculated precision to their methods, a personal vendetta behind the quiet, relentless attempts on her life. They feared her, and it was clear that this fear went beyond just the human race. Leora had become a symbol of defiance, a rallying point for those who believed that the old order was no longer enough. Her mind was sharp, but even Leora could feel the pressure. The war had entered a new phase. Survival was no longer a question. Now, it was about something deeper. Revolution. Admiral. Commander Tanaka's voice broke through the tension, snapping Leora from her thoughts. "We've intercepted more communication. The Council is mobilizing additional fleets in the outer reaches. They've intensified their search for any Terran outposts. We can't afford to stay static. If we don't strike soon, they'll come to us." Leora paused, her eyes narrowing. The Council's hunt for humanity was relentless, and their patience was wearing thin. The Black Fleet would continue to play its deadly game, but the Terran ascendancy could not remain a passive target. They would need to act, and soon. "We'll fight back, then," she said, her voice hard and unwavering. "We won't just be reactive. We'll make them react." At the fringes of the expanse, humanity had begun to plant the seeds of something far more dangerous than mere rebellion. The outposts and colonies were no longer just defensive havens. They were becoming rallying points for anyone disillusioned with the Council's rule. Disgruntled alien factions, mercenaries, and even the remnants of civilizations that had once bowed to the Council now saw humanity's rise as their own chance for freedom. Leora had spoken about unity, about breaking the shackles the Council had placed on the galaxy. What had once been dismissed as a dream was quickly turning into a powerful, undeniable reality. "These colonies are more than just survivalist pockets," said General Isaac Carter, the newly appointed head of the Terran military. "They're sparks. The fires we've lit are spreading to the rest of the galaxy. But if we want to ignite this fire, we need to reach beyond our borders." Leora met Carter's gaze. "I agree. We'll form alliances, real ones. The time for half measures is over." The Terran ascendancy had already begun reaching out to alien groups who had suffered under the Council's domination. They sent emissaries, covert diplomats, and small task forces to help overthrow the local governments that still served the Council's will. It was a slow burn, stealth operations to weaken the enemy, stirring rebellion from within. In one of these sectors, the Zyphar, a reptilian species known for their guerrilla tactics, had grown disillusioned with their long-standing alliance with the Council. The Zyphar were warriors at their core, their culture built on strength and honor. When their colony world was left to starve after the Council's blockade, the Zyphar had no choice but to look elsewhere for help. It wasn't long before a Terran vessel, the Vanguard, made contact. Leora's emissaries, led by Colonel Miles, negotiated in secret. The Zyphar had a common enemy, the Council, and after a tense exchange, an alliance was forged. The Zyphar, in turn, offered something invaluable: knowledge of the Council's weaknesses. But not all were willing to join the rebellion. On the icy world of Varix, deep within Council space, a different kind of alliance was brewing. The Council Loyalists, a faction of the more conservative alien races, had begun to regroup. They saw the rise of the Terran ascendancy as the beginning of the end for the galaxy's natural order. They had no intention of allowing the humans to continue their uprising unchallenged. Loyalists, led by the imposing General Threx of the Kari, were already amassing their own forces, preparing for a showdown. The true test of humanity's resolve would come when the Council and its loyalists faced off against the forces of rebellion. As the rebellion spread, the galaxy began to change. The old order was cracking, revealing the fragility of the once unshakable power structure. Humanity had become more than just an irritant to the Council. It was now a symbol of a galaxy-wide uprising. The first spark of revolution had been lit, and though it would take years, centuries even, for it to truly reshape the galaxy, the foundation had been laid. And in the heart of the Terran ascendancy, Admiral Leora Sen smiled. This was only the beginning. The seeds of rebellion had been planted, and the galaxy would soon know the true power of the Terran Empire. The war had escalated beyond anyone's expectations. What started as a series of isolated skirmishes in the expanse was now a full-scale galactic conflict. The Terran ascendancy, united under Admiral Leora Sen's leadership, had rallied entire sectors to their cause. The Council, though powerful, had begun to fracture, and the old alliances were becoming increasingly unstable. The galaxy was on the verge of a new era, one that would be shaped by the fierce rebellion humanity had sparked. The Council's forces, particularly the Loyalist factions led by General Threx, had begun a coordinated counterattack. They saw the rise of the Terran Empire as an existential threat, and were prepared to use every resource at their disposal to quash the rebellion. Their tactics were brutal. Worlds were razed, populations enslaved, and dissenting factions crushed. But even as the Loyalists unleashed their wrath, cracks began to form within their ranks. The more they fought, the more they alienated those who had once supported them. On the battlefield, the Sci-Fi, newly allied with humanity, proved invaluable. Their guerrilla tactics and deep knowledge of Council strongholds allowed the Terrans to strike swiftly and decisively. The Sci-Fi had not only helped sabotage the Council's supply lines, but had also infiltrated their command structure, feeding humanity crucial intelligence. Yet there was still much work to be done. The Council's fleets were vast, and their forces, though fractured, were not yet broken. This continuation emphasizes the escalating conflict and the strategic importance of the upcoming battle for Jadaris IV. The Terran ascendancy, led by Leorisen, is no longer just reacting to the Council's attacks. They are now on the offensive, taking bold steps to win the war. The Council Loyalists, under General Threx, are feeling the pressure, and their desperation is starting to show. The turning tide is the point where the war reaches its critical juncture, with humanity's resolve pushing them closer to victory, or potentially a devastating defeat. The stage is set for a decisive confrontation that could reshape the galaxy. The Battle of Jadaris IV was not just a fight for control of a single world. It was the decisive moment in the war. The Terran ascendancy, despite their progress and victories, had one crucial weakness: their logistical supply chains. The resources of Jadaris IV were vital, not only for military strength, but for the entire rebellion's infrastructure. If the Council Loyalists seized it, they could cripple the Terran forces, unraveling months of hard-fought success. As the Terran fleet gathered above the planet, the tension among the officers was palpable. Leorisen stood at the center of the command deck aboard the Defiant, her expression calm, but her mind was a whirlwind of calculations. Everything the Ascendancy had fought for, every victory, every ally, had led to this moment. This battle would define the future of humanity's place in the galaxy. Enemy forces are moving into position, Admiral, reported Tanaka, her fingers dancing across the command interface. Loyalist fleet is 10 minutes out, with 2 heavy cruisers and a full complement of strike craft. They're taking the bait, just as we predicted. Leora nodded. We'll draw them in. All ships, prepare to execute Phase 1. The Sci-Fi will lead the charge. Let's show them how we fight. On the opposite side of the battle, General Threx's fleet arrived in the system, his ships gleaming in the cold light of Jadaris' twin suns. As his warship Crimson Fury broke through the atmosphere, he watched the Terran fleets in the distance, appearing vulnerable, scattered across the space around the planet. It was a trap. Stay focused, Threx commanded his officers, though his mind raced. He had prepared for this, but the Terrans were too unpredictable. They had drawn him into this fight, and he was determined to crush them once and for all. He turned to his second-in-command, Commander Xira. We will drive them into the ground. This battle ends today. The first volley of shots rang out as the 2 fleets collided in the void above Jadaris IV. The Loyalist strike craft surged forward in tight formations, confident they could outnumber and overwhelm the Terran forces. But Leora had foreseen this. In an instant, the Terran fleet shifted into Phase 1. The Sci-Fi, using their unparalleled stealth technology and guerrilla tactics, flanked the Loyalist ships, disrupting their formations with lightning-fast strikes. Their cloaked warships decimated the Loyalist rear, while Terran bombers hit supply lines and critical infrastructure across the fleet. Loyalists are breaking formation, Tanaka announced. The Zephyr are hitting their command ships. It's working. Lyora's heart pounded in her chest. The battle was chaotic, but the Terrans were everywhere, efficient, methodical, relentless. The Terran fleet may have been smaller, but the unity they fought with made them stronger than any individual ship or weapon. The Council had underestimated that unity. Phase 2, Leora ordered. Launch the Aegis fighters. Strike their cruisers and take out their command ship. We need to cripple their leadership. Threx's fleet was beginning to falter. The Aegis fighters, a deadly combination of speed and firepower, tore through the Loyalist ships with surgical precision. The battle had become a dance of death, with Terran ships moving with coordinated grace, while the Loyalists scrambled to maintain control. "General, we're losing control of the fleet," Xira shouted, watching helplessly as Loyalist ships were picked off one by one. "The Terrans, how are they doing this?" Threx gritted his teeth. "We will not lose. We cannot lose." His eyes locked on the massive flagship of the Terran fleet, the Defiant, as it bore down on his position. He gave one final order, his voice a low growl. "All ships, attack the Defiant. Destroy their flagship. It's the heart of their forces." The two forces collided in a flash of explosions and debris. The Defiant shook under the pressure as Loyalist fire pounded against its shields, but Leora Sen stood unfazed at the center of the command deck, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. "Return fire. Target their command ship. Bring down their leadership. We finish this here now." The Loyalists' flagship, the Crimson Fury, retaliated, launching waves of torpedoes and energy blasts. Yet the Defiant was built for this. The Terran fleet had learned from every battle, every scrape, and they were now masters of warfare in the stars. With a devastating volley of concentrated fire, the Terran ships cut through the Loyalist defenses, crippling the Crimson Fury and scattering the remaining Loyalist ships. In the blink of an eye, the battle shifted from a desperate fight for survival to a resounding victory. As the battle subsided and the smoke cleared, the stars above Jadaris IV bore witness to a crucial moment in history. The Loyalist fleet was shattered, and their command structure was in disarray. Threx's flagship limped away, crippled, but the Council's grip on the galaxy had loosened. The Terran ascendancy had emerged victorious. Leora's voice echoed through the comms as she looked out at the wounded battlefield. "This is not the end. It is the beginning. The galaxy will know us now. The Terran Empire is born." The final push had been executed flawlessly. The battle for Jadaris IV had turned the tide in humanity's favor. The Council was reeling, their power fractured, and the galaxy would soon feel the consequences of the rise of a new power. The Terran ascendancy was no longer a rebellion. It was an empire in the making. And with this victory, humanity had proven that they would not be silenced. They would rule. This final part of the story showcases the culmination of everything that has led up to this point, the Battle of Jadaris IV. The Terran ascendancy, under Admiral Leora Sen's leadership, executes a decisive victory against the Loyalists, effectively crippling the Council's power in the galaxy. The Terrans' unity, tactical brilliance, and bold strategy culminate in the beginning of the Terran Empire's rise to galactic dominance. The seeds of rebellion have now blossomed into something much more dangerous, an empire. The galaxy will never be the same.